This is a presentation of the Sports Source Digital Network. Presented by Hearthside Bank.
Who are Tennessee's 6 biggest rivalries across sports? 6 biggest rivals. We'll tell you next.
Go.
Welcome in to Give Him 6. This is our countdown show here on the Sports Source Digital Network. I'm John Pennington, joined as always by John Wilkerson right there from 99.1 The Sports Animal, also the voice of Vols baseball, and a million other things on the UT campus. John, thanks for being here with me.
Always glad to be here, John. Thank you.
Always good to have this guy back, too. Former Vol, Ollie Lane, doing a lot with us here on the Sports Source, do a lot with us here on the Sports Source Digital Network. Good to have you.
Yeah, glad to be here.
And I thought, if we're going to talk about Tennessee's biggest rivals, that's very much a generational thing. And since we're ancient, I thought let's get a guy who was playing on the team just 2 years ago. So we can give our takes. You can give the take of, no. Here's who the big one is now. And we'll take it from there. What I want you to do at home is we list these 6, and it's not just football. What we're doing is we're breaking it down. It can be this team in football, this team in basketball, this team in baseball or women's basketball, and then we're going to collect those 6 and rank them from there. If you disagree with our rankings, if you've got 6 that you think are better, smarter, wiser, go with those. Put those on the comment section beneath us. You can also do us a favor and hit the like button or hit subscribe. That helps us immensely. All right, so let's get going on this thing. Ollie Lane, as the guest, I will let you start. And since you played over there, let's do this. Usually we count up. Let's do it in reverse order this time. Who was the number 1 rival for the Tennessee football team while you were over there? And again, what were your years? 2018 through?
18 to 23.
18 to 23, so COVID right in the middle.
Oh, yeah.
All right, Ollie. Who was the top rival that got you guys going the most?
I mean, I think I got to start with Alabama. I think Alabama's the biggest rival we've ever had historically and continually. And I mean, now even with the last 2-3 years, we've put back on the presence that we are on the same level as Alabama. And that we can compete with them. It's revised the rivalry since I've been there, and even now, moving forward, it's become such a bigger rivalry than it ever has been. I feel like in the past, it's just now it's more competitive than it was in the early 2000s. And I mean, I tell you, it jacks you up every time when you go out there, and if you win, you get a cigar after the game. Everybody, that was probably the most fun experience I've ever had is smoking a cigar after that Alabama game.
In 2022?
Oh yeah. Because, I mean, it was just so well-earned, well-deserved, long time coming. And, I mean, that cigar tasted sweetest out of every other cigar I've ever had in my entire life.
What kind of cigars were they? Do you remember? Was it a...
I think, if I had to remember, I believe I smoked a Romeo and Juliet.
Okay.
That was my cigar for that night.
I wondered if it was pricey or if it was like,
Swisher Sweet.
It's a Dutch Master.
We all had wood-tip Black and Milds.
Why not? Yeah, all right. So he's got Alabama football, and to be honest with you, that surprises me. Because,
Really?
Well, it seemed there for a generation that it was Florida that had gone, and I wonder if it's simply Alabama's better. Alabama's top of the heap right now. It seemed, because my generation, it was always Alabama, which means your generation. I'm guessing you agree that Alabama is
yes,
number 1.
100%.
That is mine too.
Correct.
But if you'd done this question in 2013 or 2012 or 2000, I think everyone would have said Florida, which I would have argued with. Historically, it's Bama. So I'm a little surprised that the youngins still have Alabama. They've moved Alabama back ahead of Florida, and I think it's just because Florida's kind of dropped down. They're not competing for national championships or SEC titles anymore. So even though they beat you a lot, it's not the same as knocking off Alabama.
Well, I do think that you're on the exact track, and that is Florida's taken a step back to where they aren't, it's not the punch to your schedule if you happen to beat them. And then there's also the frustration side of that series with the Gators, because there have been several times Tennessee was the better team, should have beaten Florida, but didn't. When you look at the Alabama Crimson Tide, they've been the standard. And so I know that after the fact that you went up against them in 18, 19, 20, and 21, and, of course, there were many seniors that were before then that didn't get to taste victory. That's what made 22 so special, and, I mean, such an iconic moment in the modern Tennessee football history. The smoke rising in Gators Stadium is the coolest picture, I think, of all, and any recently in terms of football.
Yeah, and, I mean, when you look at Alabama, like you said, you respect the program that they are because they have so much to hang on their shelves. I mean, they're the standard of what is a successful program. And so when you look at them, you're like, well, if I take that down, then that adds value to my program.
Yeah.
I think when I look at Florida, it's like I don't have that respect for Florida. Yes, they've had success in the past, but don't hold them in that same value of respect as I do Alabama, just because they have the hardware to go with it, especially in this decade. So.
Well, that's interesting. Okay, then I want to know, do you have anything else to add on Alabama? I mean, growing up, that was, when I was a kid, my birth year was the first year of the 11-year streak. So I was over there at Neyland Stadium, and we actually have a copy of the Sentinel on our other set here at the studio of that 1982 win. It's the Sentinel from the next day. The Tennessee shatters the streak or whatever it says. Alabama's always been the most hated rival from when I was growing up. So it never became Florida. I understood that, yes, you have to get by them, and yes, Spurrier's a loudmouth, and yes, they beat your brains out. But it's the respect thing. I kind of respected Alabama more because their history was longer. Florida was like new money. Yeah. It's like, you haven't earned it. You kind of fell backwards into it. I'm not worried about you. Alabama's the one I want to take down. So I guess it is when you were born, and then also you couple that with who's taken over the playground right now, and it's Alabama over Florida.
Well, it's also the rivalry that has its title, and that is the third Saturday in October. Right at the time, and Steve Spurrier, of course, got Florida on the incredible run that he did in his tenure in Gainesville. But the joke was, it's like Florida football, 100 years of football, 10 years of tradition. I mean, it was exactly what you're talking about, new money. So, but again, to their credit, it was Alabama and Florida in the SEC championship game for the first 4 or 5. So they made themselves what they continue to be, and that's a team with expectations to compete for national championships. But again, getting back to what you said, there's the long-held respect, one opponent to the next, for Tennessee and Alabama, which I don't think either fan base feels the same way when it's Tennessee and Florida.
Yeah. Well, I think Nick Saban recently said this on ESPN. It was before the Tennessee-Alabama game last year. He said, you want Alabama's biggest rival? It's Tennessee. Not Auburn. It's Tennessee.
Yeah.
And I think that shows the level of respect going both ways. You may hate them, but you can respect them. And I think over 100 years, 130 years now, I guess, you forged that rivalry. And you're right, third Saturday in October means something. It's like if a team had a rival that used to have a trophy. That carries weight with me. We may talk about that later. What I want to know, though, is, in my perspective, number 2 would probably be Florida in most people's minds. But if we're talking about excellence has risen, Alabama past Florida, who's number 2 on the list over there? Is it Florida or is it Georgia?
See, and that's where I've been racking my mind about this for a while, and I'm just thinking, obviously if you're looking at it from that perspective, Georgia is becoming, I feel like, one of our biggest rivals now, especially in the past few years, because they've risen to the standard now. However, I still have a lot of hatred for Florida. No matter what's going on with them, I hate Florida. I want to beat Florida. And you add into the fact we haven't won down there in going on 22 years now. So, I mean, it's just, that's something that I think adds a little bit weight to that, why I put Florida at 2, just because we still got something we got to earn back with winning a game down there. But also, I feel like when you look at the way our schedules were structured in the 2000s, 2010s, I mean, that Florida game was our setup game. It was either we beat Florida, we have a great season, we lose to Florida, and the season is what it is. And so I think that added weight to it. Now that they're moving schedules around, that weight's been moved off of that. But there's still just that hate for Florida. The way that they conduct themselves, they play in the games and all that, it's not fun. I mean, I remember, 23 in Gainesville. I mean, that was just a miserable game. I mean, their players just chirping the whole time. You can never get anything really accomplished communication-wise because they're over there just talking the whole time, barking. They call out every single mistake you made. I think I had a messed up snap, which, happens. I heard enough from the fans about it, but I definitely heard enough from their players about it because, I mean, the one D tackle, I can't think of what his name was, but he was just looking at me the rest of the game like, oh, you were supposed to snap the ball there. You were supposed to snap the ball. I'm like, no, I know that, but I appreciate you pointing it out again.
John, Florida number 2 on Ollie's list. That's where I would go to. And again, it's not really, you no longer play them. But to me, Auburn and Florida just flip-flopped. Right. Auburn, to me, in my generation, That was the scene setter. That was the opening game in SEC play every year. Those teams were always top 10 going at each other. And back then you had Majors and Pat Dye, Johnny Majors, Pat Dye, who were both very conservative coaches. You'd wind up with ties an awful lot. And then Florida kind of took that role over. They're very much similar in my head. It's not so much Auburn and Florida as it is just whoever that opening team is in the SEC. But I probably would agree. I understand that Florida would be number 2. Like I said, I'm a little surprised that they've dropped from number 1 because there was that period, the Steve Spurrier to Urban Meyer period, where I think everyone would have said Florida except me. So are you surprised that Florida's number 2? What do you think of the Gators being there on his list?
I do think it's the second when it comes to football rivalries. So I definitely number 2 there. And that's just for what the game was, and that was it was the first big national game in the Southeastern Conference. And you're right, historically Auburn was the scene setter, and without question that was the big game. Yeah. And many times it wrecked a Johnny Majors coached season that you didn't beat Auburn or you wound up with a tie.
Yeah.
But Florida, when they instituted East and West divisions, that's where it grew in importance. And there was back and forth, and there was the coach you loved to hate in Steve Spurrier, and then they got on their run. So I do think it's diminished it, and then Tennessee's inability to answer back on a more regular basis has also been, that's what's made it frustrating, because as Ollie said, there's respect in terms of Tennessee, Alabama. These are two sides that just hate one another. Yeah. And so when they went on their long run, I do think that Florida is by far the number 2 for football. I would have it actually number 3 on my list of all-time Tennessee rivals, because I would go with basketball, and Tennessee, Kentucky is number 2.
Okay, we'll get to we'll break all those down. The Florida thing, to me, one of the reasons that it was so frustrating, and you nailed it, there are times where you had the better team, there are times you should have beaten them. That's recently. Mm-hmm. But in the 90s, you're neck and neck, and they really beat you every year. It's why 98 was so special. You finally knocked them off in pandemonium reigns here at Neyland Stadium. But that series should have been more even than it was during that period, and I think that really frustrated a lot of people. Mm-hmm. Of course, you go back further into the 80s, and you could say the same thing about Tennessee, Alabama.
For sure.
Let me ask you this. I've talked to people who played in the 80s, and they said, yeah, under Coach Majors, the whole program would get tight Alabama week. Everybody knew it was Alabama, and everybody kind of pucker up. Then under Philip Fulmer, it's like they calmed down about Alabama, but everybody worried that it's Florida. And you could feel a difference in the room in Florida week. They bring in a guy in Josh Heupel he ain't from around here.
Yeah.
Did you guys feel a difference in the program when it was Alabama week or Florida week?
I feel like most of the difference that we felt was just own player pressure on it. Coach Heupel does a good job of just treating every game as the biggest opportunity is the next one because it's the next one on the schedule kind of mentality. He does that well. I mean, obviously you got to add in. He puts in the weight of this. We're playing for the cigars. We're playing for the third Saturday in October and the weight. But he does more of teaching the history of the game versus like putting pressure that we have to really outperform ourselves. Because, I mean, every time we go out in any game, and especially rivalry games, he just says if we just take care of what we can control the controllables, we should come out all right. Now, however, I will say the previous staff put a ton of weight on the Alabama game.
Of course.
And that's because they were from there and they knew what it was all about. But I can remember very specifically being told by my offensive line coach that you are not a man until you've played in that third Saturday in October. Okay. And so, I mean, they put a ton of pressure on it. Okay. So.
All right, interesting. All right, so we've got Alabama, Florida. You just said it was a tight battle between Florida and Georgia, so I'm guessing Georgia is your number 3?
Yeah. I mean, just the fact of how far they've come along, where they're at now. I mean, even looking back, those games were always tight when Mark Richt was down there because he was putting together some pretty consistent teams. But now with Kirby Smart at the helm, I mean, Smart's gone ahead and established what Georgia is, what they're going to continue to be. And to be honest, I don't really like Kirby Smart. I think we talked about it on the Saturday show last year about some of his comments that he has. It's just that's another level of hatred. But I also, at the same time, have respect for Georgia just because of they have tradition, they have history and a past of being successful. And I mean, even before the new transition, that was the battle for the East the last few years. And I mean, not having that takes a little bit of the weight off of it. But it's a very important game. And now you're looking at this season coming up. That's the first SEC game on the docket. I think it's better because we just go in and rip it off because now, to me, Georgia is becoming the new biggest rival pushing forward into the future, I think. I think we're starting to get to a really good position where we're getting even with Alabama. I think we start going down to Gainesville and beating Florida again, hopefully. Yeah. And so I think Georgia's the one now where it's like, we got to get these guys. We have to get these guys. It's been a little while since we've gotten them. We've been close sometimes, but we got to continue. And that's just going to add weight to the rivalry for us if we can continue to beat them, because rivalries aren't rivalries if one side's always losing.
John, the interesting thing about Georgia, I get it, when I've heard people talk about they hate Georgia now, Tennessee fans who hate Georgia, I never understood that one, because my generation, Tennessee didn't play Georgia. Mm-hmm. They didn't play Florida either, but Spurrier was such a mouth that, okay, that made you hate Florida. Georgia, you pretty much beat for all those years. Fulmer owned them, but also, okay, Ray Goff, Vince Dooley. I didn't hate these guys. Jim Donnan, there was nothing to hate there. Mark Richt, I don't like Mark Richt. He's a nice guy. Mm-hmm. There was nothing about Georgia other than the fact that they've gotten good of late that would make me detest the Bulldogs. But people who've grown up seeing them on top here, they have that hatred for them that I just never had it. Where do you see that Georgia rivalry with Tennessee, the football rivalry?
I would put it at number 3 for Tennessee football, simply for the fact that that's the one that is it's the biggest goal that you have to attain. Because even though it's no longer East-West divisions, for instance, if you beat Georgia last year, you go to the SEC championship game just to where it fell on the schedule. It's different this year, but it's been so remarkably streaky. I mean, there's a Vol Network video that was decade of dominance, and that was Tennessee winning 9 straight games against Georgia. And, of course, as they were so frustrated not being able to beat Tennessee, they actually had instructions in the local paper as to how to storm the field when they were convinced they were going to win, and they did not. That was T. Martin and company that prevented that from happening.
I had forgotten that. That's horribly embarrassing.
But so enjoyable.
Yeah, well, from a Tennessee perspective,
without a doubt. But I do think the fact that Tennessee once had the upper hand to that degree, and now this I think is the white whale for Josh Heupel. This is the next proving ground. You've beaten Alabama. You ended so many different losing streaks, whether it was a rare occasion where you went up and you just smoked LSU when you went down there the last time. You've beaten Florida. Georgia's the team. That's the proving ground now. I mean, there's only 3 other teams technically in the SEC that he hasn't beaten. You lost to Arkansas last year. You haven't beaten Auburn because you haven't played them. And then there's Texas. Everybody else you've beaten. This, Georgia, is job one for Josh Heupel now.
Yeah, and it used to be, I mean, they couldn't beat you, period. You mentioned that run. Go back to 94. You lose your starting quarterback at UCLA, and you go to Georgia, and everybody's thinking, oh, you're going to get crushed by Georgia. Todd Helton and that whole they ran for like 300 yards on them.
Yeah.
And it's like, there's nothing we can do to beat these guys.
I think he threw 9 passes.
Yeah, it was like a General Neyland game plan, and they just ran all over them that day. I would think if I'm looking for a reason, if I put a Tennessee fan hat on, the closest I ever came to disliking Georgia isn't about a coach, isn't about players. It's about a loudmouth announcer, and they love Larry Munson in Georgia. One thing I loved John Ward here. John Ward would have never rubbed it in an opponent's face with the hobnail boot. We kicked them in the face we stepped on their face with a hobnail boot. It's like I can't imagine John Ward or Kaywood Ledford getting violent in a call. I just thought that was kind of a classless call. If you made me look at things I don't like about Georgia, that is probably number 1 on my list. Now, Georgia fans loved it because everybody loves that kind of a call. If it's your guy, I just thought I wouldn't have liked that if I were a Georgia fan. I think, come on, Larry, pick it up. But that's just me. You are a broadcaster. Did that bother you at all, or did you just sit there and go, next time we beat Arkansas in baseball?
I mean, if you're fortunate to sit in that seat long enough, there are receipts, and it could be exactly what just mentioned, the fact that there was nearly a decade or 9 meetings where Georgia just simply wound up with winless.
It was a breakthrough for him too.
Yeah, so I do think that's one that if given the opportunity, and then also the way they did it, because Tennessee had the opportunity to stop them and just didn't.
Yeah.
So that was, I think, also part of it. But Yeah, you can see frustration, without a doubt. Because his sidelight is Jack Crystal, of course, is a legendary voice for Mississippi State. When it's Tennessee and Mississippi State in the SEC championship game in '98, there's Mississippi State was right there hanging with Tennessee, and there was a call that went against the Bulldogs, and I'll never forget him rising up out of his seat to give an incredible gesture to the in the field. So it's like
tremendous.
You go, Jack Crystal.
There you go. There you go. That's good. That's good. All right, so we've got, Ollie has given us, in his opinion, Alabama, then Florida, then Georgia, all in football because he's a football player. Now, I want to know, and what we're going to do, just to reiterate here, this is give him 6. We've got a 6-1 countdown. Like if you enjoy this comment or this show, this content. Subscribe to the channel. But what we're going to do is we're getting all of his football. We're getting 4 or 5 of his football teams. Then we are going to throw in some other sports, and then the 3 of us will rank whatever we kind of come up with as our 6-issue list, our 6-item list. All right, so 4th on your football list, because we're out of the big boys now. This is this is going to be interesting for a Tennessee football player, recent player. Who's number 4? Who's your 4th biggest rival on there?
When I start thinking about we're getting deeper into this list, it becomes a little bit more challenging. But obviously, I got to go with Kentucky football. Kentucky football is just historically, they hate us, we hate them. It's both sides, family feuds. So, I mean, I'd put that on there as 4. I might raise it up a little bit if there was still a said trophy that went along with that game. As a player, I wish that they would have brought that back.
Brought the beer barrel back. Yep.
But,
should.
Yeah. But at the same time, they always put together pretty competitive teams defensively. Sometimes their offense is not up to the par, but they seem to always play very hard against us. I mean, I can think of the last at least 5 years, some of those games have been really tight. And so it's been hard-fought games that we've come out and prevailed in to win. And so we ended up, I think, 2019, they came to Knoxville and we lost to them, or it was either 19 or 18 that was broke the streak. And so I think that added a little bit more to it after they broke the super long winning streak that we had.
Yeah.
They'd
broken an even longer streak in 2000. Year was that 2010? That was Dooley. That was 10.
That was the wide receiver playing quarterback.
Roark, I believe, was his name. And then they beat him. Lynn Bowden was the receiver who played him. Gave him a good game too. But you're a good man for putting. Again, to me, years matter. I know a lot of people. We've talked about it on my television show before, where we've done these conversations. It's like, where does Kentucky rank? Like, doesn't rank. Who cares? We'll give them up as a permanent rival. The SEC's messing with the schedule. You're probably going to lose Georgia. You're probably going to lose Florida. You're probably going to lose Kentucky on a regular basis. Mm-hmm. I would rather keep Kentucky and dump Vanderbilt. Kentucky, to me, you've played them more. Mm-hmm. You hate them in basketball, too. I would argue Kentucky's really the only one of these that you have a real rivalry with on both of your main sports. Yeah. So, to me, Kentucky should be on that list, and I'm glad you said that. I was happy to hear that you didn't go somewhere else. John, Kentucky football rivalry, how do you view it? Would you put it in your top 4, or do you have something above it? Another football rivalry.
Yeah, another football rivalry. That is probably where, even though it's been completely one-sided, although they have had a patch of success of late, I would go Vanderbilt at that. And that's just because there is a historic aspect to it. I mean, General Neyland was hired to defeat Vanderbilt. So you go back then, they were a football power for about 5 minutes. And then, of course, that came and went because it didn't take long for General Neyland to get the upper hand. At that time, Captain Neyland, but anyhow. But I just think, and I actually put in Vanderbilt on my list at number 5, and that would be for all sports because
overall,
it's the sport. I mean, it's the series, it's the game, it's the matchup that you'll hear about it if you don't win. And so, but again, there was a point in time. Go back as I talked about with George Cafago, what Vanderbilt meant to him.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, bitter, and it was referred to for a while as the South's most bitter rivalry. So it wasn't anything like the third Saturday in October, where it's all kinds of banners and things. This was just really two teams that can't stand one another. So Vanderbilt, I would slide in at number 4 for me with football, and number 5 for all sports.
Very good. I have not a whit of care about Vanderbilt. It doesn't interest me to see Tennessee play them. I just think they're the little brother that is annoying. They're a pest. I don't even. To me, you got to be able to. And this is the ironic thing. They've beaten Tennessee in football more than Kentucky has in recent years. But I still don't respect them. I still, in fact, I don't think part of it may be I don't think they belong in the league. I just think the day has come. If you were picking out teams to put in the league today, obviously you're looking at you're seeing it happen. You're seeing it play out. But you wouldn't put Vanderbilt in the league. I just don't think they belong. I think Kentucky belongs. But that's why I wanted to get your take, because there are a lot of people out there who would put Vandy first. And if you've got to keep one of the two, Vandy or Kentucky, to me, the permanent rivals should be Alabama, Kentucky, and then Georgia, Florida, Vandy, wherever you want to go. But I wouldn't lose Kentucky. You would say, if you're going to dump one of them, keep Vandy, dump Kentucky.
Well, I just know the league's not going to let you not play Vandy.
Right.
But, and I do think you make a fantastic argument, because Tennessee-Kentucky is the third most played rivalry in the history of Southeastern Conference football.
Yep.
So there is actually a reason for you to put the Wildcats ahead of the Commodores in that instance. And also love the fact that so many times they've had a better team, perhaps, and Tennessee has just quashed any hope, dream, or aspiration of them getting a win. So kudos to you guys for any time that happens.
Well, how many times have we seen Kentucky lead a game deep into the third quarter, and it's a tight game, and we're going back to the 90s when Tennessee was good. It was almost like they were playing with their food.
Yes.
And then the fourth quarter would start, and you'd look up and it would be, 21-17. Final score, 52-21. Wow. You saw that a lot.
And then a personal favorite of late, when you guys went up there and you didn't possess the ball for 15 minutes. Still won.
Oh, yeah.
That's
talk about a miserable game. It's freezing cold in Lexington. Trying to let the starters use the benches, get heated up. So I'm freezing over here. You got we're only on, I think we got one drive that first quarter, if that. And they're just running triple option with a quarterback that's not a quarterback the whole game, and it's annoying.
Well, let's get into the beer barrel aspect. We've done this on my show in short bursts because I can't do the whole 90 minutes on it. This is YouTube. We can do whatever we want here. It really burns me up that you have one trophy game, one real trophy game in this league. Now, the Big Ten is just chock full of them. Everybody's got, we're playing for the golden spittoon, and everybody, the bronze urinal. They've got something everywhere. Here you had the beer barrel, and you've created, a couple other newcomers to try and create a rivalry. They've doctored up. Oh, we're playing for the golden boot. Yeah, sure you are. Okay, but the beer barrel not being a part of it, and I understand the year that Kentucky had players who died in a drunk driving accident.
Correct.
I understand that. You don't bring it out that year. Got it. To permanently retire it, and then to say it must be retired, when Kentucky now sells booze in their stadium, they have $1 million bottle of Maker's Mark,
Correct.
Which means it costs $10,000. They don't do math well there. I don't know how $1 million bottle is $10,000, but if you give $10,000 to the program, you get this special silver bottle of Maker's Mark. They did a commemorative Maker's Mark, officially licensed through Kentucky with the coach's face on it, coach's name on it.
Yep.
They do specially branded Bud Light bottles with the UK logo on it. I don't want to hear that, we've retired it because we had play. Well, then strip the alcohol out of your stadium. If you're going to do that, then I don't want to see any alcohol in it. I've said this on the air, and I fully believe it. Tennessee still possesses the beer barrel. If Kentucky doesn't want to take part in it, when Tennessee beats them, just run it out, show it,
Break
and
that
then
bad
run
boy
it.
out.
And then if you lose, they don't want to see it. We'll just leave it in here. They don't want it. We're not giving it to them. Just keep it and bring it out whenever you win. Absolutely. I think that is the reason that thing went away had more to do with we're tired of never owning it and just seeing it every year than it did the terrible, tragic loss of those three players. I think now at the time, maybe it was driven by that, but now it's 100%. We don't like having a trophy that we don't win. It annoys me. It is a special thing to have a trophy that goes back 100 years. That thing during Prohibition, they had to market ice water. So you don't even have to say it's the beer barrel. You could do the same thing today. It's not beer. It's ice water barrel, Kentucky. Danny White would be the hero of heroes if he said, we're trotting that thing out this year. And I think they should.
100%. And I would echo everything you just said, especially the fact that all you have to do is say it's the battle for the barrel. You don't have to say what kind of barrel it is. And again, the hypocrisy that's there for the fact that Kentucky, like everybody else, that's a new stream of revenue.
Yeah.
But it's the fact that they are so partnered with bourbon now, so it's like we can't have a beer barrel, but you'll bourbon it up all 7 days of the week.
Yeah, all this bourbon talk made me want to take a drink. But
them too.
Yeah, I mean that's the problem. If I don't begrudge anybody making money off alcohol. Fine, go do it.
Sure.
But if you're going to do that, you can't then say we can't bring the barrel back. It's offensive. Well, what is it? It offends the memory of these players. What does a bottle with Mark Stoops' face on it do? Doesn't that offend their memories? And you had a couple of years ago.
Now it's their fan base, but that's
we had that a couple of years ago. He made the comment they had an 11 a.m. game, and he said, I don't put it past the Kentucky fans to get up and have a few beers early in the morning. Oh, really? Really? Head coach saying we want our fans to get up and have a few beers early in the morning, but you can't play for the barrel. That annoys me. That would have been fun for you as a player to have that barrel out there.
Any player in any sport anywhere is going to feel more motivated if you're getting a trophy out of winning the game. And I'm just like you. I mean, call it something else. Call it the battle for the barrel. I mean, you can reword that, but to just have it sitting there collecting dust is just a waste of time. It's a waste of space. I mean, that thing had meaning to it, and it just adds another layer into the rivalry to, give that game more of a rivalry feel to it.
Well, is Kentucky – I'm trying to think. Is Indiana back on Kentucky's schedule this year in football?
I don't know.
They've not played them in a while, I don't think. But they used to play for a bourbon barrel.
Right.
Let's see if they trot that out there. That would be very telling because Kentucky can beat Indiana. Let's see if they still play for the bourbon barrel because that would be another one to put in the hypocrisy trophy case for Kentucky. All right, before we finish up this list here and do our own ranking, I do want to say thanks to Hearthside Bank. Folks, they make this whole thing possible. SportsSource Digital Network, our show here, Give Him Six, and they can help you reach your financial needs. When in doubt, if you're looking for a bank that has personal attention for you, it's Hearthside Bank. Find them at hearthsidebank.com. All right, we have Alabama, Florida, Georgia, Kentucky. Do you have a fifth? Would it be Vandy? Is there somebody else?
I mean, look, when I look at Vanderbilt, no offense, as a player, every game, they got us a couple times, but it was just, to me, the one time that they got us in 18 when I was there, it was more or less our fault. It wasn't them being better than us. Whenever we play Kentucky, it's competitive games for the most part. There's always a tight outcome, at least in the last few years. But with Vanderbilt, it never feels like there's that tight competitive game. I mean, half the time those guys roll over by halftime, and it's just, waltzing out the twos and the threes and finishing the game up.
Especially over there when you're in front of 19 fans.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, I can think back the 2020 game when we went out there. I mean, that felt like a high school scrimmage. There was no fans in the stadium, and obviously because of COVID, but just, I mean, you talk about a dead game. I mean, and that's what that game feels like every year. It's like every year that I went in that game, I was like, I can't wait to see how many flatbacks I get. I'm going to chart them up because I know I'm just going to be moving these guys around all night. And so, I mean, that's just how it goes. When I think of, I guess, and the schedule conflicts for me has messed this up a little bit, but I look at South Carolina, I look at Missouri as being more rivals to us, especially in Missouri in the last few years with Drinkwitz over there and him and Heupel's kind of feud between the two.
And there's some of that with Beamer as well.
Exactly.
A little bad blood.
And then, I think back to South Carolina, there was a point in time where every year that South Carolina game was falling that Halloween weekend.
That's true.
Almost making a name for itself. It was pretty tight games for most of the point. But now we're in a situation where we don't play South Carolina every year. We don't play Missouri every year. So it's hard to say, well, it's not a rival because you don't play them every year. But every time we play them, there is that true hatred and want to beat them. Especially I feel like with this Heupel staff, that Missouri game has risen to a very feuded hatred point. I mean, the last years that we played them, it was a point to go out there and beat their, you know what I mean?
Yeah. So. Well, I mean, he had been over there.
Exactly.
He'd been an offensive coordinator there. So. That's interesting. So he says no to Vandy. I say no to Vandy, but out of respect for you, I'm going to put Vandy as the last football thing on here. But I will ask, did you have another football rivalry that you would put on there that we've
You mentioned it earlier, and it would be Auburn, and that's just again for what it once was, and that was the most important early game on your schedule, if not sometimes your first game on your schedule. That would be the one historically to trot out.
And I think if you look, I did this last year. If you go back and look at who Tennessee has played the most times, in reality, in the SEC, either 4th or 5th on that list is Ole Miss.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
And you and I remember a day when the end of the season every year was Ole Miss, Kentucky, Vandy. That was the way it ended year after year after year after year. And when they went to Georgia and Florida and took away Auburn and whoever I just said.
Ole Miss.
Ole Miss, that's it. Thank you. Excuse the stroke. When they took away those two, I hated it because you had a rivalry with those. But new things do crop up. I mean, Florida became the most hated for a lot of fans. Georgia's now up there. South Carolina for years. You talk about a game that was 55-3 back in the 90s, year after year, meant nothing. Spurrier goes over there immediately, beats UT. But it still didn't feel like a major rivalry. It needed that 2022 game. I'm a big believer that to create a rivalry, it either has to be hundreds of years of games, or we've been playing since the Pleistocene era, or it needs to be you took something from me. Mm-hmm. If you beat me in a do-nothing year, that's one thing.
Yeah.
But if I'm top 10 and you knock me off, I hate you for that.
Yeah.
And I think that if that Tennessee team had been 8-4 when South Carolina beat them like that, but that launched and the way they ran it up there, because you'd kind of run it up, they felt you ran it up the year before. That the fact that you had a shot at the playoff, you still had a shot at winning a national championship, and you go there and lay the egg, that means something. So to really hate somebody, they have to beat you and take something from you.
Carolina, you can make an argument simply for the fact that, as you mentioned, with 2022, how nightmarish that was. But then why not go back to where Butch Jones has risen up? He's beaten Florida and Georgia same season. It really, the season's done when they lose to South Carolina that season. And then you even go back to the first year there was an SEC championship game. Guess who Tennessee beats? Florida and Georgia. And who do they lose to? South Carolina and Arkansas, the new arrivals in the SEC.
And the South Carolina game was the end of the Johnny Majors era. That was the one that he claims the contract was on his desk, and afterwards the contract was no longer offered.
Steve Tannehill hitting home runs. They got him the next year, but then again, that one was one where Tennessee has had special seasons within reach, but South Carolina has been the biggest hurdle perhaps in those three.
And any chance I get to mention something here in our Games and Thing Arena set, I will do so, but we have a poster back there autographed by James Caan of the program, which was shot at halftime of that Tennessee-South Carolina game in 1992. Still a great run by Mose Phillips if you want to look it up from that year, but failed on the two-point conversion attempt, as I recall, and that was what ended the run for the Vols that year and ended the run for Johnny Majors as your head coach. Alabama, Florida, Georgia, Kentucky, Vanderbilt. Those are the football options. Tell you what, let's you and I decide which other two. We'll put another couple on there. So we'll have 7. We'll nick something, and then we'll all rank those final 6. How about that?
All right, sure.
Now, I've got 3 options here. You had me change one of them, and you can tell me if we should put something else on here. We've got Kentucky basketball, which to me is the only basketball team rivalry in the SEC. I guess Vanderbilt, it used to be Kevin Stallings, and you go to Memorial Gym. That could be a tough game.
Knocked out Tennessee when they were number 1.
That's right. Right after you beat Memphis, you go and lose to Vandy. But I still don't put them on this list like I do Kentucky. I've got Pearl hoops. I just think anywhere Bruce Pearl goes now, you've got a rivalry with them. And then UConn and the Lady Vols. That's not as big. It's certainly not as big now, even though it was great for the fan base to beat them this year. And Lady Vols to knock them off. You're not even the power in the SEC anymore.
Correct.
When it was the 2 best programs in college basketball year in, year out, and the 2 best coaches, that was at a level that was unseen in women's basketball. It's dropped now, in my opinion. I had Vanderbilt baseball on here, and you said, no, go LSU. So we got LSU baseball here, which I will let you, I'm going to give you the choice here, and I'm going to let you start. Where are you going? How are you taking this? Because I kind of sounded off there. Tell me about the LSU baseball thing.
Well, that's one where while you certainly enjoy the opportunity to beat anybody on the other side, especially those that had your number for a good stretch, South Carolina, what they've done to turn that series has been remarkable and so enjoyable. 6 straight series wins against the Gamecocks. At one point, South Carolina went 27-3 against Tennessee baseball.
You sound like a man who's about to break out your own hobnail boot ball. Go ahead.
Yeah, there's been 1 or 2 of those. But anyhow, I go with LSU baseball simply for the fact that that seems to be the one that is the most respectful. And when you look at the Tony Vitello era, while they did run off 9 straight wins against Vanderbilt, let's look at what has happened between Tennessee and LSU. You win the East for the first time in 2021 since 1997.
Yep.
You host a super regional for the first time ever that season. You had swept LSU that year. They come back, you sweep them again. So you win 5 in a row there against LSU. Then the next time you go to their place, Paul Skeens is pitching, and he sets the stage. You do get the last one. They take the first 2 to win the weekend. You get the last one, and so there's that. Next time you square off, it's going to be the next big matchup is in the 2023 College World Series. They beat you twice. You're eliminated. So they had the upper hand there. Tennessee gets them last year. They sweep them during the regular season. They beat them for the SEC Tournament Championship. So it just seems that there's either something special and unique on the field or there's been something hanging in the balance. Okay. So it's been the most impactful. It's been where essentially you protect your home turf, and Tennessee has had its fair share. Then there's another aspect to it, which, boy, the older fans just hate when you point this out. But again, going into this season, they had figured his percentage wrong, by the way. Oh. Skip Bertman was at like 725. Tony Vitello was at 725. In terms of, they say that if you've been a coach 5 years or longer and you have 100 or more wins, then you qualify for your winning percentage being considered as the best of all time. So it was Tennessee, it was Tony Vitello and Skip Bertman. Now Tony Vitello has the highest career winning percentage of any SEC coach. So, but again, LSU fans will just say, no way. You could show them pictures of her mom, and they would probably have a lesser reaction.
All right. Do you agree with me that UConn Lady Vols might have been on there 10 years ago or 15 years ago?
I think so, because it was what the spotlight, the national spotlight found that game. The one rivalry that I would put on the list, actually put on there, and it's just a tip of the cap in terms of the 2 head coaches, it would be Pat Summitt against Andy Landers. It would be the Lady Vols against Georgia. Yeah. They've met for a national championship. They played for several SEC championships. They beat them more than anybody when it came to SEC tournament games. So I would have Andy Landers against Pat Summitt as one of my all-time 6.
Okay. So we've got UK Hoops, Pearl, UConn, LSU baseball, Georgia versus Lady Vols. UK Hoops has to be on there. That's got to be. Mm-hmm. Nobody has beaten Kentucky in basketball more than Tennessee has. And on the other side of it, you've missed so many, back in the day, you missed so many NCAA tournaments because you wound up runner-up to Kentucky. Mm-hmm. And it was the conference champion that would go year in and year out. To me, UK Hoops has to be on here. So that means, unless you want to argue with me, I was just going to put 7 because that's kind of all the space we have. Who should be, so we got UK Hoops already on there. In terms of the entire fan base, see, and that's another thing. I don't know that a Lady Vols game would be up there with like a football rival.
Right.
Except when this thing was rolling, everybody in the state of Tennessee was tuned into it. Mm-hmm. I would argue you're probably looking at this now. Mm-hmm. Pearl and Auburn would be my choice. What would you take off this list?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I got to agree with you there just because of how much success that Bruce Pearl has as a basketball coach and where he goes. And, I mean, the fact of the matter is he'd probably still have a good chance of being our coach if what happened didn't take place.
Oh, yeah, if he hadn't gotten in trouble. Yeah.
So, I mean, the fact of the matter is wherever he goes, he has a really good team. And, I mean, the games that we have against them are always heated, close games. So that creates a rivalry in itself with just the coach.
I think his being at Auburn is the worst single thing for Rick Barnes. Mm-hmm. I think the fact that it's constant comparison to that guy, and no one seems to care about the black cloud that go with it. It's just Final Four. So where would you go, John?
No, I tell you what. that was not a consideration for me, but you both have convinced me that would be on my top 6 now.
You think?
And that's, again, because you have, I think, Tennessee, Alabama in football is number 1. I would go Tennessee, Kentucky in basketball number 2. For each what the other program holds. I mean, you are the cream of the crop. Alabama is the standard in football, and you've got more wins against them than anybody. Same with Kentucky. That is primarily the bluest of blue bloods in college basketball, and you hold the most victories against them from anybody. And then I would slide Florida football into number 3. And then, as I mentioned, I would put Vanderbilt in all sports at number 5.
Let's argue this one out. I think we all agree that Alabama football is number 1.
Yes.
You may differ from this. You may put, because you played football, you may put Florida football above the Kentucky basketball rival. I'm with John, so you're going to get outvoted. But you tell me what you think. But I'm putting Kentucky hoops as number 2. Would you put
taking a step out of my cleats and just kind of putting on the Tennessee fan base hat, I'd have to put Kentucky hoops over that, just because that's program or school university wise, that's a really big rival for us. And I mean, basketball is I would say our second biggest sport at the university. So I mean, that's got to go up there.
All right, I just made one more change to this in honor of your argument. So right now we have Alabama football number 1. We voted Kentucky hoops the number 2 rival right now. We're choosing between Florida football, Georgia football, Kentucky football, Vanderbilt everything, and Pearl, which is an interesting mix here.
Really
you've got
is.
a hall, you've got football, you've got basketball, you've got a coach. What's the next biggest rivalry on there? Is it Florida football? Look, it can't just be our list. It's what we think the fan base,
Right.
or what you think the team is thinking next. You obviously think that would be Florida football.
So, in my perspective, yes. However, I think now in fans today, players today, I feel like they're probably putting Georgia up there above that, just because Georgia's now the premier cream of the crop team that we got to go out and get. And so that's what fans are focused on. Now, if you add in historic, past, all that stuff, I put Florida there. But I think now, just putting on my hat as a Vol fan today, I'm putting Georgia over Florida in that list.
Okay, he's good. Georgia over Florida. I'll go Pearl. I think Pearl is your next biggest rival. I think Florida's dipped a little because, again, you've knocked it. If they've fallen a little. Georgia, you haven't beaten them. They're out of your league at this moment, unfortunately. I think Pearl's the one that carries the most heat in Knoxville just because of the history and the comparisons to Barnes. To me, that's the more heated thing at the moment. Mm-hmm. Where do you go with that? Do you go with either of those, or you get your own?
No, I would roll with Florida football. I would take a different path because I do think Georgia, I mean, right now, who's the team that you want to beat the most this season? It would be Georgia in football. But I do think that I would put Florida football number 3, and then just by a nose in front of Bruce Pearl, because, again, the argument is completely and totally compelling that it deserves to be not just on the list, but upper half. Because that is presence of mind. But I do think that if you could just say, if you get to win 3 games, what would be the 3 most important games? It would be Alabama football, Kentucky basketball, and Florida football still.
That's an interesting way of looking at it, because if you put it that way, I think the answer is Alabama football, Georgia football, Florida football.
Okay.
I just think, I think that football, you can add up all the other arenas, they don't equal 100,000.
No.
That's the thing. So
fair point.
If we went that way, I'll go ahead. He says Florida. You debated between Florida and Georgia. I'll go with Florida. Let's just put Florida 3. All right. Do we want to go? What's next? Georgia football?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. See, I'm yielding because I still think Pearl Hoops is up there. 1, 2, 3, 4 is in. So here's what we're choosing between: Kentucky football, Vanderbilt all sports, Bruce Pearl.
I'm going Pearl. I think Pearl's the next biggest one. And it's just from what we went into about Kentucky football and Vanderbilt as a school and all. I mean, I don't think it's been as competitive as it has been in the past. And these games with Pearl and Auburn have been super competitive and really high-stake games for us. Yeah. And so I think that adds that extra layer to move them up on that list.
And even though Barnes has gotten past him, except for this year, he's been getting past him in the tournament for the last 4 years. Nobody seems to care. It's all about just Final Four. Nothing else matters in that sport. It's just Final Four or not. If you don't make the Final Four, you're a loser. You're either first or last, Ricky Bobby. Ricky Barnesy.
Well, it's what either you have never accomplished or what happened. What have you gone the longest without accomplishing? So that's why I do think that Georgia in football would be job one. Heck, we've beaten Alabama 2 out of the last 3. So I do think Georgia will be number 1, and I do think that the Final Four has become it's been within reach, and it's so close and yet so far. So but I do like Pearl Hoops at number 5.
Okay, then it comes down to Kentucky football versus Vanderbilt everything, and the fact that it's everything makes Vandy have a little bit better shot for me, but I'm still going Kentucky football just due to the history of it. And part of that is I grew up on I spent years as a kid on the state line. I know that, and I'm sure there are Alabama people that live down there where Philip Fulmer's from, Winchester. It's Alabama. I get that, but to me, it's Kentucky football over Vanderbilt in anything. Ollie, where are you going?
You bring the barrel back, I'll go Kentucky, but I'm going to stick with Vanderbilt just because all sports-wise, yes, it is just.
So the all sports converted
school to school, yeah. School to school-wise, it's a historic rival, and I enjoy history, so I'm just going to go ahead and chalk that one up.
By being the nice guy and letting you put all on there.
That's right.
It's all about John. All right, so you're going to go Vanderbilt all.
I would.
Okay, well, so there's our top 6 list. It's wrong.
But that happens.
Yeah, it happens.
It's all about opinions.
I shall fall. So anyway, here, let's go ahead and get a shot here. So number 1 in our list of rivals currently, Alabama number 1, that's Alabama football. Number 2, Kentucky basketball. Number 3, Florida football. Number 4, Georgia football. Number 5, Bruce Pearl, wherever he goes. And number 6, Vanderbilt in everything. Very good. I think you're crazy, but no, that's good. And if you think we're crazy, tell us. Get in the comment section. I know there's some of you who are like, no, it's this team. No, it's that team. Go ahead and let us know in the comment section what your top 6 is, or just your number 1, or just the one that we completely. Here's the thing: we might have forgotten something. I'm sure we probably did. So let us know what your take is. Also, hit that thumbs up button. It tells other Tennessee people about shows like this, and hit the subscribe button, and it'll tell you whenever we pop something up like this. You can also follow the playlist where all the Give Him 6 shows are there, or at the end of this one, it will throw up whatever the latest Give Him 6 was. So appreciate it. Appreciate you, John Wilkerson, for always being beside me on this one.
Thank you, John.
Alan Lane, thanks for coming back.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me.
Appreciate it. It's good stuff. And we will see you next time on the Sports Source Digital Network.